Hello dear students, a very good afternoon to all of you. As you know, we are discussing the chapter Deep Water from your textbook Flamingo. In the last class, I have discussed about the first portion of the chapter, which is actually an autobiographical part. That is, actual book was written by William Douglas. The name of the book was Of Men and Mountains, and this is a portion from that book. So, in this autobiographical story, we find how the poet was able to overcome his fear of water. As I had told you in the last class, this story is based on the saying, the proverb we can say, where there is a will, there is a way. So, if I just sum up what I have done in the last class, then I must tell you in a few sentences that when William was only 3 or 4 years old, he had been to the sea beach of California along with his father, and there he had an experience, and that was the initial stage of his fear. He was so much frightened because the waves of water were coming on top of his head. At that time, his father was also there. He was clinging to his father because he was very much afraid of the water, but the waves were coming one by one on top of him. He was very frightened, he was afraid, but his father was laughing at that time. Actually, this is not his father's fault. Generally, fathers are not able to realize what the children feel that the mothers can. So, his father also, not intentionally he was laughing, but the way he was laughing, that was really not that the child would agree with him. The child was fearful, he was frightened, but at that moment he did not get the help from his father. His father thought that William was just playing with the water, but actually he was in fear. That was the first initial stage when our writer got frightened of water. And after that, when he grew up, after a few years, when he was say 10 or 11 years old, then he went to the YMCA pool. That is, he went to the Young Men's Christian Association that was giving lessons to the children, to the kids. He went there to learn swimming, and there he was almost able to swim. He had almost learnt how to swim. Suddenly something happened. What happened? He was actually early to the pool, so he was waiting for the other kids to come and play and swim with him. At that moment, a boy or man, we can say, he was of 18 years, a very strong and stout boy. He came and he just asked him, would you like to be dipped in water? And then he took the little boy, that means our writer Douglas, and dropped him into the water. At that time, he was very much frightened because he was not that much comfortable with the water, but when he went in the water, into the water, then he got very much frightened. Though he was, while going down, he was making a plan of how to come up, because he knew the swimming pool. It was only 9 feet deep. When he was dropped and he was going down, he was just planning that as soon as I touch the floor of the pool, I would come up like a cork. But it seemed a long way down, and those 90 feet became almost, those 9 feet became almost 90 feet to him. Then he was very much frightened, he could not come up. He tried his level best, but only his eyes and nose could come out, but his mouth was still under the water. Then I flailed at the surface of the water, swallowed and choked. He tried for air, but he could get only water. Then again he started, and he did not forget that strategy. Strategy means method, how to come up, but he could not. I went down endlessly. I opened my eyes, nothing but water with a yellow glow. He tried to come out, but he was again going down. Then his legs, as if he felt as if his legs were getting paralyzed under the water. It was stiff, rigid, and he was in fear. Then what happened? He was in terror. Stark terror took an even deeper hold on me, like a great charge of electricity. I shook and trembled with fright. Then my arms wouldn't move, my legs wouldn't move. I tried to call for help, to call for mother, but nothing happened. That much we had done in the last class. And then strangely there was a light. I was coming out of the awful yellow water. At least my eyes were. My nose was almost out too. That was the situation. Then I started down a third time. So you see, he went down to the water for the third time. For the first two times it was okay, but this time it was really very serious, because he did not have that much of strength also. I sucked for air and got water. The yellowish light was going out. He wanted air. He longed for air, but he was only getting water. Only water was there. Then all effort ceased. I relaxed. Even my legs felt lame, and a blackness swept over my brain. Then he felt like that he should not try any more to come out. He was just feeling relaxed. He could not do any more effort. He was unable to try any more. So all his effort ceased. He relaxed. Even his legs felt as if he could not move his legs. And a blackness swept over my brain. Means everything was black. Everything was blackout. Nothing was there. It wiped out fear, as if there was no fear also. It wiped out terror. He was in terror, but right now he was feeling that there was no terror. There was no more panic. So you see, fear was not there, terror was not there, panic was also not there. It was quiet and peaceful. He was feeling as if everything was peaceful. Nothing to be afraid of. He felt that there was nothing to be afraid of. This is nice, to be drowsy. He felt drowsy means when you feel like sleepy. He felt that everything was drowsy. To go to sleep, you see, just a little bit later you will find this is nice, then ... to be drowsy ... to go to sleep. These are the feelings he was feeling. No need to jump. Then he also thought that there is no need for me to jump, because I do not want to go up, because I am not afraid of anything. Fear was not there. He was too tired to jump, and he did not have that much strength also to jump up. It's nice to be carried gently. He felt that he was carried by something. He was not trying for anything, but he was carried. He was safe to float along in space, as if he was floating along in the space. Tender arms around me, as if someone was holding him. There is no risk. There was nothing for him to fear. Tender arms like mothers. At that time, again, earlier also he felt about his mother, and this after the third dip, again he was feeling that tender arms like mothers were there. Now I must go to sleep. Then he felt that he must go to sleep. Okay, this is a very important paragraph, means how he felt. I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell. He was thinking that that was the last moment of his life. He was going to die. This you may also say that near death experience, as if he had gone almost, he was going to die, and then he came back. The feeling was like that. He thought he would die, so he said, the curtain of life fell. I crossed to oblivion means he went to nothingness. The next I remember I was lying on my stomach beside the pool vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying, but I was only fooling. Next thing what he remembered was that he was lying on his stomach, means there were some people who brought it up from the water and they were trying to pull out the water from his stomach. Then that chap who had dropped him into the water, that 18 years old chap, he was saying, I was only fooling. Then someone said, the kid nearly died. Be all right now, let's carry him to the locker room. Then he doesn't remember anything. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. He was very much tired. Still, he walked home. He was very weak. He was shivering. He shook and he cried. He could not eat anything that night. And for days, a haunting fear was in my heart. And for days long, that fear was in his heart. Due to the slightest exertion, he also got upset, making me wobbly in knees and sick to my stomach. Whenever he used to do anything physically, he got tired. That was, he was always in fear of that type of fear. I never went back to the pool. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. After that, he stopped going to that pool. Not only that pool, he feared water. So, he did not go to any pool or any water sport, nothing. A few years later, then years passed on one by one. After a few years, when I came to know the waters of the cascades, cascades means falls, I wanted to get into them, and whenever I did, whether I was wading the Triton or bumping river or bathing in warm lake of the goat rocks, the terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. Okay, after a few years, whenever he saw some falls or some waters, whether he wanted to take bath in that water or he wanted to cross the water, whatever he wanted to do in the water, that fear which was there when he was a child, that always used to come back. My legs would become paralyzed. Icy horror would grab my heart, and he always felt that as if he could not move his legs, as if his legs were paralyzed, and icy horror would grab my heart as if his heart would stop now. So, this type of feeling always disturbed him. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by in canoes or main lakes, fishing for landlocked salmon, bass, fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing on the Deschutes and Metolius. These are the names of various places where people generally go for fishing or water games. I went, the haunting fear of the water followed me. So, these are the places wherever he went during that time, the haunting fear, the fear that always used to haunt him, that used to make him afraid, it was with them, it always followed him. Wherever he went, the fear was there. It ruined my fishing trips, deprived me of the joy of canoeing, boating and swimming. Canoeing, that is also a type of boating, then swimming, these are all water sports. So, he was deprived of all these types of joys in life. He could not enjoy, but he was growing up. He could have enjoyed it when he was a young boy, but he could not. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. He tried his best, but he could not overcome this fear. Always fear was surrounded everywhere around him. Finally, one October I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. Then he thought of hiring an instructor who would teach him how to swim, because in the YMCA pool he used to go there and learn to swim like other kids. Now he thought, now he is grown up, he thought of hiring one instructor who would teach him how to swim. Then I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. See how long he used to practice. He used to go 5 days a week, that means out of 7 days he used to go for 5 days, and 1 hour each every day he used to swim there, he used to practice. The instructor put a belt around me, a rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope and we went back and forth across the pool, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. You see, one end of the rope was with the instructor and the other end of the rope was with the author, and they went up and down, back and forth so many times. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and I went under, some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. Whenever he thought that the instructor had relaxed, then the terror came to him. But when instructor was along with him and he was sure that if I get down or if I am dipped into the water, if I am drowned into the water, then there is the instructor, he would take me out. Then it was okay. But whenever he found that instructor had loosened his hold, then and then he was in fear. What fear? The childhood fear would come back again. Then he taught me to put my face under water and exhale, and to raise my nose and inhale. Then that was the other process. How to inhale and how to exhale, that was taught by the instructor. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Just imagine, he wanted to learn how to swim, and for that what are the measures he had taken? This practice he used to do hundreds of times. Bit by bit I shed part of the panic that seized me when my head went under water. Next he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. That was another process he was taught. When he used to put his head, he held me at the side of the pool and he asked him to kick his legs. For weeks I did just that. He used to do the same thing for weeks and weeks, means whatever practice was shown to him, he used to do it for several times, whether it was kick or it was exhaling or it was inhaling, whatever was given to him, he used to, whatever instruction was given to him, he used to do that. Thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer. So, in this way he was able to make a swimmer out of this boy who was very much in fear of water. And when he had perfected each piece, means each item, when he was sure that the author had already learnt how to kick, how to inhale, how to exhale, how to go and come back, all these things one by one, when he was able to do all these things, then the instructor told him that now you can swim, dive off and swim the length of the pool, crawl stroke. Then he instructed that now you can swim. So, you can dive off and swim, go to the full length of the pool, then come back. I did. The instructor was finished. That means he had learned how to swim. So, instructor, the task of the instructor was over. But I was not finished. Now he is telling that I was not finished. I still wondered if I would be terror stricken when I was alone in the pool. Till now it was okay because the instructor was there along with the writer. Now he thought, if the writer is not there, what would I do? In April he said, now you can swim, but means his task was over, but I still wondered if I would be terror stricken. So, whenever I swam the length up and down, tiny vestiges of the old terror would return. Those tiny scary scenes, scary feelings were still there. But now I could frown and say to that terror. Now he could say, as if the terror is personified. He was trying to scare me? Well, here is to you, look, and off I would go for another length of the pool. Whenever he felt like that he was in fear, then he used to tell fear, trying to scare me, you can't, because I can scare you. This went on until July. That means he started in April and it went till July, but I was still not finished. I was not sure that all the terror had left, so I went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived off a dock at Triggs Island and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. These were the examples where he used, these were the places where he used to go. Only once did the terror return. When I was in the middle of the lake, I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. There was nothing but bottomless water. The old sensation returned in miniature, as if in small form. I laughed and said, well, Mr. Terror, what do you think? You can do it to me. I fled and I swam on. Then he was out of fear. That was the final time when he was not scared. Yet I had residual doubts, but he had some doubt. At my first opportunity, I hurried west, went up the Teton to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to Meade Glacier. These are the names. Just as Doug Carpenter used to do, I shouted with joy, and Gilbert Park returned the echo. I had conquered my fear of water. This Gilbert Park, in this Gilbert Peak, he shouted, and the shout, whatever he had, whatever shout he was doing, that sound came back, it echoed. I had conquered my fear of water, and then he was sure that he had conquered the fear of water. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. This is such an experience that everybody cannot understand. If a person have only that much of experience, only then he would be able to understand. Otherwise, everybody cannot understand what is this fear and how you can get rid of it. In death there is peace. There is terror only in the fear of death. This is most important, as Roosevelt knew when he said, all we have to fear is fear itself. The writer is telling, there is terror only in the fear of death. In death there is peace. But if we think, always keep on thinking that we might die, there is terror only in the fear of death. We are always fearful because we might die. But Roosevelt had said, all we have to fear is fear itself. This is most important, because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. In that situation, when he was going down for the third time during his third fall, he had the experience of death, that means near death experience. He thought that was the end of his life. So, he is telling that experience is also with me when I thought that I might die now, and the fear of death was also with me. So, I know that only if you have this type of experience, then only you would be able to understand my fear, how I experienced. I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. So, you see, he was fearful throughout his this much of life, means the early portion of his life. He was fully fearful, he was scared of water, he was fearful of water, but he could get rid of it. The will to live somehow grew in intensity. As I have told you, if there is a, you see it is written, where there is a will, there is a way. At last I felt released, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. Now he was able to do anything with water, any type of water sport, any type of swimming, any type of canoeing, boating, he was able to do that. Earlier he had the wish, but he could not due to the fear of water. So, this much is the chapter. Let me tell you in just a few sentences. This is about the fear of water, that is why it is written deep water. The chapter is deep water. How our writer William Douglas was fearful of water and how he got rid of it. This is taken from his book of Men and Mountains, and this is an autobiographical piece. From there, deep water is just a part. So, in the first phase we have seen when he was only 3 or 4 years old, he was scared of water. That was the initial stage when he was along with his father, and he got scared of water due to the big wave that came in the California beach. Then when he was 10 or 11 years old, he went to YMCA pool to learn swimming, but he was just going to learn. At that moment a boy of 18 years old, he came and he took the boy, he took the writer and dipped him into the water, and then he had 3 falls in the water. First of all he went, then he thought of coming up when he touched the ground, but he could not come up fully. Then second time another time he went down, and it was so much terror to him that he thought his legs were getting paralyzed, he was not able to come up, only his nose and eyes could come out, but he could not come out fully. Again he went down, and another time he started coming up, but he was not successful. So, for the third time when he was going down, at that time he was not in terror. He felt as if he was in oblivion, he was going to die now, this is peaceful, no more effort is necessary for him to come up, he should not try anymore, as if he was in the lap of his mother and someone is holding him. So, there was no need of any type of no need of any such thing to come up water. So, that was the third fall, and after that he decided to keep an instructor so that he could learn to swim. Then according to the instructions of the instructor, he started learning how to swim, and step by step the instructor told him how to kick in the water, how to inhale, how to exhale, what to do, what not to do, all these things were with him. At the beginning the writer was also in terror, because he was in fear, because whenever his instructor was holding the one end of the rope and the writer was holding the other end, but whenever his instructor loosened the grip, loosened the hold, then the writer was in terror. Then after practicing, he used to practice 5 days a week and for 1 hour every day, and whatever method was shown to him, he used to do it a number of times, like 100 times he used to do the same thing. In this way he could get rid of fear, and his instructor told him that now you can go, you are a perfect swimmer, so you can go wherever you want to go. This way our writer could learn swimming, and now we come to know that this saying is so perfect, where there is a will, there is a way. So, this much for today. I hope you have understood the chapter. Read it nicely and line by line, because for multiple choice questions you need to understand all the lines and the meanings of all the words. Okay? Thank you.